Welcome to another episode of Under Center with Jake Russell. I'm your host, Collin Sheffield. Alongside me is head coach Jake Russell. Coach, it's your third season. You come in, you had a tough year last year right at the end where you think you do enough and not just enough, you put it in the hands of other people to try to control your destiny. Now you just look a season later and you're in the controlled seat to just win one more game, and you've got your automatic bid to the playoffs in 3 years. Is this maybe an accelerated timeline of what you thought, or did you think it would take longer? Is this where you thought you would be by season 3?
Personally, yes. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why we've been able to get there is our staff. Obviously myself really setting, here's the expectation, standards, and goals. And we really believe in, don't just put something on paper and say, we want to win the national championship every year. We want to go undefeated and then, not really buy into that as a staff. And then also we have, and we've talked about the awesome group of guys, the core group of guys that were at Campbellsville when we took over, some of the guys that were in our program previously that we were able to bring into this program, and some of those initial transfer guys that in the freshman class that bought into that. And they really started to believe it, I believe, 2 Januaries ago, heading into the 2024 season. I think our team believed last year that we could accomplish those things. And as you mentioned, a couple plays away from being in the playoffs and being where we wanted to be. And we will always believe that we were built to win in the playoffs last year, just with where our defense was and with quarterback play and some of the things going on offense, some of the great, senior guys that we had that aren't in our program anymore. And, I just think that fueled our guys to have another great offseason. And, in spring, you kind of get a little sense of your team and man, how are we going to be? Are we still going to be as good as we were last year? And then obviously early in the year, finding ways to win games early in the year. Now we look back at that St. Francis game, and I believe they have a great shot to finish 9-2 and be an at-large team, and say going on the road week 1 and really a lot of guys that you didn't know what they were going to give you at that point, right? Jet, what's he going to be and his improvement over the season, and some of the new receivers and the guys that have to step in on the offensive line, and then a lot of new parts on defense, right? D-line and some DBs that have a new shot. And so it's been really cool to see over the course of the year this team really kind of gel and become the best version of itself. And I think that's what you're seeing the last few games. And we talked about how the loss could be a positive thing. Obviously through 2 weeks it has been. We hope it continues to be. And I think one very important thing when we talk about the game last year against Georgetown was we were in a game where if we would have beat Georgetown last year, you kind of control your destiny. You would have had one more game, of course, to become the conference champion and get in the playoffs. And now it just comes down to one. So I think as you build a program, you have to be in the situations first before you can kind of overcome those hurdles. Well, we were in the situation last year. We handled it great. It was a great game, made a great comeback to force overtime. And now you're going to be in that same type of game tomorrow, where you're now a win away, where you fully control your destiny, where we were hoping, and I told the team, I said, my opinion doesn't matter. Don't ask me what seed we're going to be or if we're going to host or if we're conference champ. At the end of the day, my opinion, our staff's opinion, the people watching our program that believe we were good enough to be in the playoffs and win in the playoffs last year. And our big message to the team after the season last year and in January was, don't let people's opinion decide our fate. We control our fate when everybody's 0-0. And here we are going into Game 10. We still control our fate, which is the dream.
So we'll take a look at that game just last Saturday, 38-9. The Tigers took a win over the Receiving Boats Bethel Wildcats, who was coming off of an overtime win over a Georgetown team at home. Trey Bass had 2 catches. He had 171 total yards, 2 touchdowns. Jet Ingle threw for almost 200 yards, just a tick under, and 2 touchdowns. And Amari Calhoun had a big day, had 3 total tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 13 of those yards were lost, 4 solo tackles. He had very good end speed, and I think it really reflected. Khalil was talking about how he thought that they could get on these edges and thought that our guys matched up extremely well to cause a lot of pressure in the backfield, and it felt like Destin Chance, their quarterback, didn't quite have the chance to really settle into a pocket at any given point. Felt like he was flushed out a lot, and obviously had a lot of sacks. I think ended up being 7 total sacks by the end of the game. So that Tiger defensive front really got into the backfield easy.
Yeah, when you're facing a very talented quarterback who can make all the throws, the biggest thing you want to do is make him uncomfortable in the pocket, right? Quarterback is a much easier game when you have that confidence to be in the pocket. Know you're not going to have to face a lot of push and pressure, and the push is equally as important as the real pressure, right? You can run around the edges, but if the quarterback can step up in the pocket, you can still play at an extremely high level and make all the throws. Well, we were getting great push up the middle, and then Amari and some of those guys and some of the edge blitzing we were doing was very effective. And, Amari is a great example of a guy who came in, had a bunch of sacks last year at his previous school and said, man, he's got the tools. Now can we make him a complete player? He's playing the run better than he has all year. He's being more physical than he has all year. And now he's learning how to use moves that Coach Owen's been working on him with since August. And a guy that, again, got here in August, and the learning curve had to be very fast for him of, hey, coming from a program who didn't necessarily win at a very high level, playing in a different conference, coming to the best conference in NAI in this very competitive environment on a team that wants to win. Can you play at that level? Not just I'm getting a sack a game, but can you really be a huge force on a defense in a game doing everything well? And he's a great example of that. You mentioned Trey and Jet. Something I told our staff is and said to some of the guys on the team, our leadership council, was our best players are going to have to play the best now, right? And any team that's won a championship and made a run, whether Shaq and Kobe on the Lakers back in the day, or Michael Jordan or Tom Brady with the Patriots, they never played really bad and their teams won a championship, right? But then again, what I told our coach this morning is we have to coach our whole rooms and the whole team better than we ever have, because the guy on scout, if he can give the best look he's gave all year, that's going to make a difference on Saturday. The guy that's on 3 special teams but really not playing, on offense or defense much, he's going to make a difference in this game. And so, when you want to do something special, it really does take the whole team, and I think our team's bought into that.
It was also senior day, and you talk about kind of buying into the whole team. There's a lot of seniors that got in there and was making big plays throughout the game, and then it obviously got to a point where you could kind of put in the second string going into the third string and start to let some guys get some reps, and we got to see some other seniors make some plays. We were talking before about Danny Isaac getting on there, making that big catch, and what probably should have been a first down, wasn't one, but regardless, the sideline exploded when he came back over there, and I think it just speaks paramount to what this team is about.
Yeah, I think there was a few snaps in there where obviously Max is playing quarterback, and we've been together for 5 years. Max has been in my quarterback room for 5 years. Him, Danny, and Max and Danny have been very close since their true freshman year. They're roommates now off campus, and pretty cool. Max got to go up to Alaska and visit him where Danny's from. And to see him throw him that pass on third down and Danny get the first down regardless of what they said. And I think on those same plays you had Caleb Austin out at the X receiver, Dimitri Bose at the Z receiver, and then maybe even Quan was in maybe for one of those. Those 4 or 5 guys were all true freshmen in 2021 when I took over at KCU. And here we are 5 years later. So that was very special for me to see those guys. And, of course, you got all the other different elements, right? You got Josh Traylor and Ellis and some of these guys that have been here in our program 4 years, Josh Etienne, on and on. And then you've got guys like Rowan Hazard, who just came into our program, last January and is a senior, right? And he makes some big plays in the game. Then you have Amari, which we mentioned earlier. I think he went through senior day. I think he has another year possibly, but he just got here in August. So as we mentioned last week, there's all these different elements. There's guys that have, were here when we got here at Campbellsville that have really been the backbone of this thing. I think of Dalton Peets and guys like that, Trey, of course. And so there's all these cool things. But what's been so special about this team and why we've been able to have this accelerated success, as you mentioned, was those guys never looked at each other as, well, he's from here, I was here before he was. They all just said, hey, we're one team, we have one singular vision. I think this team's really grasped that, of here's our goals, here's how we accomplish those, was keep the eyes on the prize through ups and downs. And it's never perfect when you have 170 total people in your program. There's always going to be adversity. There was adversity Saturday. But I hope they can finish this thing off right Saturday.
Well, Coach, we'll step away and give you a break, and we'll be right back on Under Center with Jake Russell.
Life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome. Prediabetes does. 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, but with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. And you can change the outcome. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test today. Go to doihaveprediabetes.org.
Welcome back to Under Center with Jake Russell. I'm your host, Collin Sheffield. With me is former Fighting Tiger and color commentator Khalil Baker. KB, we got a big one coming up, man. The Tigers were able to seal the deal on Saturday against Bethel to make it just one more game to win the Mid-South Conference Championship. And it's been a convincing bounce back for the Tigers after that loss to Cumberland. I know we've talked about it, probably in excess, but it doesn't fail to repeat. I think the Tigers really learned their lesson from, as far as it goes to preparation and just being locked in when you show up to a game day, especially now that you have such a high ranking and a higher target. Everybody's trying to knock you off. They're trying to get their statement win on their season, help boost their resume. And in the Mid-South Conference, everybody's kind of battling either right for that conference championship or they're really trying to get that at-large bid, which isn't too far-fetched in the Mid-South Conference. So they were able to do it. They bounced back with a convincing win over Faulkner, 62-9. Then they take on a Receiving Votes Bethel team coming off of a big overtime win over Georgetown, 38-9. And now we head on the road, one game left to clinch it for the first time since 2015.
Yeah, man, it's really exciting times to be a Tiger, of course, and you know they've gone through a lot. That Cumberland game was heartbreaking, to say the least, and you know you kind of think about like the Lindsay game from last year and the Georgetown game from last year, and it's like, oh no, this has happened all over again, just now against Cumberland University of all teams, I guess. But this has been a really competitive year for the Mid-South Conference. It's been really chaotic. It's been fun to pay attention to. We had some close games last week, which seemingly close to the first half, of course, and then Lindsey Wilson pulled it off against Cumberland and Georgetown pulled it off against Cumberland. So it's been fun, man, to keep track of. But this team is resilient. They've been challenged. They've challenged themselves, especially after that Cumberland loss, and the coaches have stayed on top of them in that way, and they've responded well. And that's all you could really ask for. You got to continue to prepare when it comes to, being a playoff team and a championship team, and that's their aspirations. And they're getting so close to that, and they're very close to that, and it just takes one more win and pulling it off that way. So you can definitely expect them to be super focused this week, preparing the way they need to, keep holding themselves accountable, and hopefully, preparing just to give some guys some breaks and some rest, and we can really prepare for a big playoff run. It
was senior night against Bethel, and you kind of have a different role in your job where you get to kind of work a little bit closer with a lot of these guys maybe than I do on a daily basis, as you kind of facilitate them coming in and you kind of chat up with them all the time. You work with them as recruits coming in, a whole bunch of different stuff. All these seniors coming through in whatever facet, right? Whether they've been here for a year, whether they've been here for just, for 4 years, whether they came in from KCU with Jake. There's a whole different slew of seniors that we had go through the program, but there was, I believe, 31 seniors out there on that field. And then we got to see them right there at the end. And we got to see Danny Isaac come up with a catch. We got to see some guys that we hadn't seen before, and they got some playing time and able to come up with some big things on senior day.
Yeah, I think one of the seniors said it in their motto. And for context, I work with admissions specifically, so I get to help all the coaches out and helping the recruits get through the process. So I meet all the football guys as they come in, and so getting to talk to them for a little bit and just build some relationships that way. And they're a fun group of people and very exciting to work with. But I think one of the seniors said it in their little motto or send-off last week. They said, "Once a Tiger, always a Tiger." And I think that's true, and I think that's real, and there's a lot to that. And I kind of stole it. I tried to write it in the story with Sheldon. It's kind of stole it. Once a Tiger, always a Tiger. It's real. They're grateful for the experience here, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, all 4 years, whatever the case is. But there's something real about that tradition and the Tiger pride of it. And they embody that perfectly, and we're always grateful for the experiences they give us and the time they've had here, and they pour their hearts out into it. They try to be involved. Great students that way too. So I'm just happy just to be a part of this, this program still, and have a chance to give back to it, and really be there for guys and learn a lot from them too. So
you talk about that always a Tiger, and I can think of plenty of practical applications as well. They went on the road to Faulkner, and they stopped midway there and had dinner at a church of a former Fighting Tiger football player who wanted to host the whole team. You got a whole slew of guys in there, and I believe they had a big pasta dinner. And that's not one story. That's a bunch of them over time. Yeah. And, everybody comes in and wants to find a way to give back to this program that's affected them in some way. And we see it a lot. And I think that especially not just with the success of this team, right? Because they were there even in maybe some of the down years. But on this rise back up, everybody, the pride is starting to build up, and you're starting to see a lot more of people wanting to tailgate outside of the games beforehand. A lot of guys joining into the 12th man club, and a lot of different things going on. So everybody's trying to get in on this piece of being that Tiger.
Yeah, I always find different ways just to shout out Coach Russ, and we talk about him all the time on the broadcast. Great play caller. He's been really fun to watch this year. I talked to him about that a little bit too. He's just been super creative, and a sign of a good play caller is stealing ideas from other people. So even just seeing him do some of that, but incorporate that into his game, and he just makes things a lot easier for Jet as far as giving him answers into different aspects of the game. So if this is not open, you always have this check down here. You can go straight to that. So he does a really good job, and Jet does a really good job, managing the offense. But Coach Russ is phenomenal as far as building the program and always honoring those alumni, and he does a great job pulling them back and asking them and just having them be a part of that program in some way. And those guys want to be a part of the program, and they want to give back. So he's done a great job building it up, and I'm just excited to see where he takes it going forward.
Khalil, excited to head down to Georgetown with you and a chance to call a pretty important game this season.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's gonna be fun. This is exactly where we want to be at, and it's gonna be great, man. Can't wait for it.
We'll step away, and we'll be right back with Coach Russ here on Under Center with Jake Russell.
Every day, thousands of kids start vaping, and I can't let this happen to my kid. So if you want to talk to your kids, you have to get it trending.
No, you're doing it wrong.
Let's go.
Can we talk?
Yeah, what's up?
Visit talkaboutvaping.org for tips on when and how to have the vape talk.
I debate all day. It's what I do. But there are some things that are undebatable, like your mental health. I was in a dark place when my brother passed away in a car accident. I was depressed in ways I never imagined. Reached out, and my sisters came, my pastor, my therapist. They helped me get through it. I found that the more I spoke up, the healthier my mind became. When you love your mind, you can go so much further. Find mental health resources at loveyourmindtoday.org.
Welcome back to Under Center with Jake Russell. Here for the final segment is head coach Jake Russell. Coach, Tigers got a big one. There's no doubt about it. It's the battle of the Tigers. You're going to go down to Georgetown, Kentucky, to Toyota Stadium, and you're going to take on the Georgetown Tigers. They're still right there. They're number 20 in this top 25 poll, and the Tigers are going to have to go down with the chance to win the Mid-South Conference Championship, close things out. We can talk a little bit about all the different scenarios that are going into this end here to win a conference championship and what that looks like for the Tigers. And you can correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. Obviously, we want the Tigers to just win the Mid-South Conference Championship and just be done with it, right? And they'll have the at-large the automatic bid. If Lindsay wins and we lose, then Lindsay would be the Mid-South Conference champion.
Correct.
And we would more than likely receive an at-large bid. And then if we both lose, there is a massive four-way tie between us, Georgetown, Lindsay, and Bethel, all four that play this weekend. And we would come out on the other side of that because Mid-South Conference rules would be head-to-head. And among the four, we would have the head-to-heads to win. So we would be the Mid-South Conference champion and get an automatic qualifier. Does that sound about right?
You taught me a lot of things during that. The four-way tiebreaker, I couldn't tell you. I probably should know. And like you said, that's something, and it's been a message to the team and to the staff, and our staff's done a great job, just trying to keep what if out of this week.
Yeah.
And even in the positive way, what if we win and we play a great game, where are we going to be ranked? What's our seed? Are we going to host? When do we play? Who do we play? And all I know is we play Georgetown at 1:30 Saturday. Right. There's a lot of different scenarios. You mentioned them. I really some of those I didn't even realize in my mind. But, our conference is so tough. It would almost be fitting if somehow there's a 3, 4, or 5 team. One year there's probably going to be a 7-team tie somehow, and they're going to have to figure out how to do that. But there's a lot of worthy teams in our conference. I think that was something that was frustrating last year is when we met over the spring or summer as head coaches in our kind of annual meeting we do, it was like, how is our conference, which finishes the best in all these computer metrics that takes out the human element, how are we not at least getting 2 teams a year in the playoffs? And, again, this year I think we dominated a lot in the out-of-conference schedule and showed, how good not only the top teams in our conference are, but some of the teams that are going to finish towards the bottom of our conference. And, I always compare it to the SEC, and, you've got teams like Florida and Arkansas and these teams that are still very dangerous in SEC football and could probably go beat anybody. Auburn, right? Almost had them a big win this week, and it's kind of the same thing in our conference. That's what makes it so tough, but it also so exciting to play in. But yeah, the big message to the team is exactly what Saturday is, right? It's a game. If you win, you secure the conference championship, you're going to the playoffs. That is 2 of our 3 program goals for every year. For this year in January, when we give the player manual, we say, you just changed the date on it. Player manual 2024, you erase the 4 and put a 5. You go through, you may, we have a new slogan for the year, right? Last year was buy in, this year it's believe. And you may, critique a few things and change a few things, but year to year, the standard and the expectation stays the same. And our expectation and standard and our goals is to win the conference championship, to go to the playoffs, right? Saturday, we can accomplish 2 of those 3. Our guys understand that. They're looking at FPI. They're looking at VSN and seeing what they're saying and NAI football and the coaches poll, right? We're in our QB meeting, and they're like, did the poll come out? Did the poll come out? Oh, we only went to 10. I'm like, guys, listen, none of that stuff matters at the end of the day, right? We know where we're at. We still got a lot of great things, possibilities ahead of us, but we've got to go grasp those and take those. And then you mentioned all those things. So Georgetown's very motivated. Bethel's very motivated. Lindsay's obviously very motivated. And everybody's going to be watching all the other games, and we'll do the same, right? I remember last year we beat Cumberland's, and we're watching about 5 games. We need this team to lose. We need this team to lose big. We need this team to win. And then some of them happen and some are not. We're all on the bus on the way back from Cumberland's like, we're in. I think we're in. And at the end of the day, we got to go win a football game Saturday, and a lot of that takes care of itself.
Georgetown is a very good team. I know they seem like they're on a downside, but their losses are really to decent teams. They lost to I believe a top 15 at that time St. Thomas team. They lost to Lindsey Wilson. That's a very good team. And they just lost to Bethel in overtime, which is a dangerous team if you let them stick around. That one was a kind of a wonky offensive game that saw a lot of different turnovers, field goals, all the happenings. This is a pretty dangerous Georgetown team, like we mentioned, that's going to be pretty motivated to try to at least cap off. Not only is it going to be their senior day at home, but it's also going to be a chance to knock off a top 10 Tiger team, and it's going to be a chance to kind of shake up that playoff mix a little bit for them, even if they can't jump up into it. And also buy themselves a chance at maybe an at-large.
Exactly, and you know, Georgetown is a great program. Like, you know, they've had a ton of success for several decades in a row. They're a team, a school, a community, a fan base that expects to win. They're not going to go in this game and think, oh man, we're not in the driver's seat for the conference championship like we've been the last couple of years, like we've been used to over time. We're just going to lay down and let them win, right? We're just going to have fun on senior day. No, as you mentioned, there could be a 4-way tie. They could come out and, you know, maybe the message is the same. I was telling our guys going into the last game, hey, we come out and have a 20, 30-point win over a ranked team. That could be what gets us into the playoffs as an at-large if that's the case. So they're going to have a lot of pride in this game. You know, obviously it's a rivalry that goes back for a lot of people, kind of way past, you know, any of my time, even as a player at Campbellsville. And we obviously had a great game last year, went down on the wire in overtime, and they're going to be extremely motivated. Their senior day, they have a lot of seniors. That can be used for, you know, great emotion and to come out and play really well. We saw that with our team this week. So they're a very solid football team. They don't have a lot of big flaws. They're running the ball well, as they always do. I think they're more dangerous in the pass game and more aggressive in the pass game than possibly they've been. And their defense is one of not the most sound that we've played all year. They don't do a ton of different things defensively. They do a good job of doing those things in moments that kind of catch you off guard, but they're just very sound. They don't get themselves out of spot much. You know, I think we've done a pretty good job of executing some things where we've gotten guys wide open down the field and executing those for the most part. In this game, those are going to be very few and far between because they just don't make those mistakes and the undisciplinedness that kind of gets those things a possibility.
Well, Coach, best of luck on Saturday. Be safe on the trip down and hope to be celebrating a Mid-South Conference championship with you shortly.
That's the goal.
The Tigers go on the road to take on the Georgetown Tigers. They'll be in Georgetown, Kentucky at Toyota Stadium at 1:30 p.m. is the kickoff, so be sure to be tuned in on 88.7 The Tiger or on the TuneIn app. You just look up WLCU, and you can find myself and Khalil Baker on the call for that one. And hopefully we'll be calling the first Mid-South Conference Championship since 2015 for the Tigers and an automatic bid to the NAIA playoffs. And be sure to tune in next week to Under Center with Jake Russell.